Hey everyone, it's Sekaar, and today I wanted to go over my bow Nightblade build that I have been using lately for the Gold Road chapter. I think this build's been a lot of fun. It's not the absolute best build that you guys are ever going to be able to run, but I think it's a lot of fun, and that's what I really care about. It's got some really nice damage. The sustain is halfway decent as well, and as long as you're just really smart about how you stealth and stuff, it's pretty tanky too, depending on how you play. But overall, I just really like the damage that is required with this thing, and I love it so much. So guys, before we get started, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so. I would highly appreciate that. We're about to hit 9,700 subscribers, and I would just really appreciate your guys' support. So let us get started. On our Nightblade, we are going to be a Khajiit. In my opinion, Khajiit is best in slot because it's going to give you those overall crit passives that really combo well with Nightblade. And overall, I just really think it is the best option for you to go with Nightblade. We're also going to be using for our attributes 15 points into health or into magic, 4 points into health, and 45 points into stamina to give us a max magic pool of 19.4k, a max health pool of 33.6k, and a max stam pool of 22.8k. We are also going to be using the Shadow as our Mundus to increase our overall critical damage and healing. Then also, we're going to be Vampire Stage 3 still because that Undeath passive is still very strong, and I definitely recommend using it. It's going to make you tanky the lower health you have. So, moving on, let's look at our gear. We're going to be using Kjolnir's as our monster set. Kjolnir's is a very interesting one that I've never really used before in open world PvP. I wanted a proc set that would really have some nice damage as well as having some kind of an easy way to proc it as well. So I went with Kjolnir's on this. So we're going to be using a medium impen helmet, and that is going to give you a line of weapon and spell damage. Then damaging an enemy with a light attack puts a bone stack on them for 5 seconds, up to once every 0.5 seconds. At 5 stacks, an undodgeable skeleton hand is going to attack your enemy after 1 second, knocking them up into the air and stunning them for 3 seconds, dealing 10,400 magic damage. And if they are not stunned, they're going to be immune to that, and, you know, regardless, it's going to be doing that 10.4k magic damage, and we're not even buffed up yet. So it's a really nice set of burst damage to combo with your other abilities, and when you hit this properly with your other abilities, it is hitting so hard and is a very nice source of burst potential. Normally, Nightblade has 2 sources of burst potential with Incap and Merciless Resolve, but we kind of changed that to add a 3rd one to that, and I really like it a lot. Our shoulders are going to be Kjolnir's in medium well fitted. Moving on to our chest piece, we're going to be using Way of the Fire on this build. This is going to be our only 5 piece on this setup. We're going to be using a heavy reinforced chest piece for this, so that's going to give you a line of weapon and spell damage, max stamina, crit chance, and then when you deal damage with a weapon, you're going to deal an additional 2,600 flame damage, and that can occur once every 2 seconds. So what I always say whenever I use Way of the Fire is it says when you do damage with a weapon, but also under that category is when you do damage with a weapon ability as well. And if you have a weapon ability that leaves a dot, that dot is also going to be proccing Way of the Fire every 2 seconds, regardless if you're even touching them or not. So I'm just going to move ahead real quick just to show you guys, then I'll go back to the gear. We're going to be using Venom Arrow on this build, and that's going to leave a 20-second dot, and that's a weapon ability. So every 2 seconds during that 20-second window, you're going to be proccing Way of the Fire. It's so good, and that extra damage is huge. It adds some nice sustained pressure on your Nightblade that really you don't see too often. Nightblade's more about burst damage, and this adds another layer to your damage, and it's overall really nice. Also, we're going to be using medium well-fitted bracers of the trainee. This is going to give you an extra line of max health to really get your health up as high as possible. Same thing with your waist piece. You're going to be using a light druid sash in impen. That's going to also get your max health up as high as possible. Also, our legs are going to be heavy reinforced legs of the fire reinforced. And then your feet are going to be heavy impen Way of the Fire feet. Sorry. And then both your rings are going to be Rings of the Fire. Both are going to be infused with weapon and spell damage enchantments on it. And then also Satan the Seducer is going to be your mythic. I really like Satan the Seducer. To me, it's probably the best mythic in the game right now. So what it does is while in combat, you're going to gain 1 of 5 random major buffs, which changes every 10 seconds. Enemies within 12 meters of you are going to gain 1 of 5 random minor debuffs depending on which buff you have. So basically, when you have Major Berserk, your enemies are going to have Minor Maim. When you have Major Resolve, your enemies are going to have Minor Breach, Major Force, Minor Brittle, Major Evasion, Minor Vulnerability, Major Courage, Minor Cowardice. So it's really strong. It really helps your overall damage when you have the proper procs on there. And if you can time it properly with your in-cap bow proc, use like Major Berserk or Major Force while that is active, and you're going to be hitting so hard, and you're going to be deleting people's health bar. I think I hit like a 17k bow on somebody earlier today, and I was very astounded by it. But overall, I really like Satan the Seducer. People ask me all the time, is it worth it to get Gold Road? And honestly, for scribing, I would say not really, but for Satan the Seducer, I would say yeah. Moving on, we're going to be using a Master's Perfected Bow on our front bar. I'm going to be using it in charge with an increased, with a physical damage enchantment on it. That way you can get some stand back as well. Master's Perfected Bow is the perfected line is going to give you 103 extra weapon and spell damage, and then the actual two pieces increases your weapon and spell damage by 330 against enemies affected by your poison arrow. So again, that's the ability that I showcased earlier with your Way of the Fire. So it's a multifaceted skill that is really solid, and it really works well for this build. And then also, Vadistron's Perfected Ice Staff is going to be our back bar. We're going to be using Defending with an increased weapon and spell damage enchantment on it. Vadistron is going to give you, when you cast a weakness to elements on your enemy, you're going to be causing a tether to link between you and your enemies, dealing either 1390 flame damage, 1390 shock, or frost damage as well every 1 second, which damage increases by 1% every second. So that's just another extra source of just sustained pressure to add to your enemies. So adding that, between that, Wave of the Fire, the dot on Venom Arrow, it is some really solid pressure that you add, and that's some really nice just kind of slow burn damage to add to your overall burst damage as well, which really adds that pressure and really makes it so that your enemies are just really struggling a lot. And overall, I like it. So before we get to the skills, I just wanted to kind of showcase and talk about what we're using and why we're running it. So a lot of people were asking me today, why are you using a bow instead of dual wield? And mostly the best answer I can give is because I just wanted to change things up. I'm kind of bored with the meta right now, and I wanted to do something that was kind of different, and I haven't ever run a bow ice staff build before on a Nightblade. I don't think I have, but if I have, I apologize. But overall, I just wanted to try something different, and this felt really nice and fun, and I've been really enjoying it. It's really cool because this build has a lot of extra, it has nice distance damage, but also you can play in a close brawler kind of playstyle as well. So it's really nice to be able to do both on this build and really be able to thrive in both scenarios. So let's look at our CP real quick. Our blue slottables are going to be Fighting Finesse, Untamed Aggression, Master at Arms, and Deadly Aim. Our red slottables are going to be Survival Instincts, Relentlessness, Celerity, and Pain's Refuge. Our green tree, what we really care about, is Breakfall, Rationer, and Liquid Efficiency. So let's look at our, actually before we go to our skills real quick, I'm going to look at this. For our food, we're going to be using Jewels of Misrule. It's going to increase our overall max health as well as our stem and magic recovery. And then for our potions, we're going to be using Essence of Health. We're just going to be using Tripods. Tripods are the best way to go, and I always use Tripods on my builds because it's just a really good way to have your sustain up at all times. So, moving on to our actual skills, we're going to still be using Concealed Weapon. Concealed Weapon is still a very strong ability that hits very, very hard on this build. Our tooltip on this is 8.5k, and that's without us even being buffed up. And so it's a nice way to combo your damage so that you're using both magic abilities, and then on this, you're using stam abilities. So it's a really solid way to keep the pressure up on your enemies, while also being able to balance your sustain and resources really nicely. Also, I'm using Shadowy Disguise, that way you can become invisible and you can get all that stuff down, but mostly you're also getting it for your Major Prophecy and Savagery, which is going to increase your weapon and spell critical by 2,600, and that's going on both bars too, so it's really nice. And then I'm using Venom Arrow on this one instead of Poison Injection because Venom Arrow is going to give you a source of Major Brutality and Sorcery, so it's going to increase your weapon and spell damage by 20% for 20 seconds. Then on top of that, it just leaves that 20-second dot that we were talking about earlier with Way of the Fire, and also you're going to be increasing your damage done to enemies afflicted by this by 330 because of your Master's Bow. So overall, this build, this ability is very nice, and make sure you have it on your enemies at all times. Also, I'm using Leeching Strikes. This is going to be your biggest source of sustain on this build. When you are struggling on your resource management, make sure you're using Leeching Strikes. This is going to help you with your resource management a lot more. I promise you. Also, while slotted on either bar, your soul yearns for the warmth of life. All damage you deal heals you for 220 health, or 2,250 health, and reduces the cost of your next Leeching Strikes by 10%, stacking up to 10 times, and that can occur once every 1 second. So basically, if you make sure that you use this every so often, this is a free ability to use, and it's basically once every 10 seconds if you have it procced properly, and it's really nice for your overall sustain. Like I've said, I haven't built into sustain with Nightblade lately because of how OP this ability is. Merciless Resolve, this is the strongest ability in the game in my opinion as far as damage goes. I've been absolutely destroying people's health bars because of this ability. Every 5 times you hit your light or heavy attacks, you're going to be getting a Merciless Resolve proc. Boom, you can throw that out there. My tooltip on this, without even being buffed up, is at 15.8k, and then you also heal for 63% of the damage dealt if you are within melee range as well. So if you're within melee range, you're going to be healing significantly. It's really nice. Also, I'm still using Incap on this build because I know that we're kind of on a bow build, but we're still kind of close up in people's business a lot of the time. So we're still using Incap. Our tooltip on this is 14k, and it's just solid. The thing I like about this build too is with having Kajolners, you have another source of CC on here. And so I'm just throwing, and I'm not using Brawler either, so I'm not worried about ultimate numbers. So I'm kind of just throwing out my Incaps like they're candy. I'm just throwing them out so often because they hit so hard, and I really don't feel like I need to even combo them with my other abilities. Moving on, we're also using Phantasmal Escape. This is going to be your source of major evasion, so it's going to reduce your damage taken from AoEs by 20%. Also, this is going to be your source of snare removals and immobilization removals, and it's going to grant you immunity to them for 4 seconds. Also, while active, taking direct damage is going to reduce the cost of your next roll dodge by 10%, up to a maximum of 100%. So basically, make sure you have this active at all times, and you're going to get really reduced costs on your roll dodges, and you're even going to get a free one every once in a while too, so that's nice. Also, we've got Refreshing Path. This is going to be your source of Major Expedition, Minor Endurance, and Minor Intellect. So it's going to increase your movement speed by 30%. Also, it's going to increase your stam and magic recovery by 15%. So make sure you're staying in here at all times or as close to this as possible, because that extra little bit of recovery is very, very, very huge. And also, it's going to heal you for 1561 health every 1 second as well. So make sure you're staying in here. If you stay in here and you have your Resolving Vigor procced, which is Resolving Vigor is a nice 5-second heal over time. That's going to help you get right back up to full health. Also, it's going to give you Minor Resolve, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 3k. If you have both of these active, hitting Leeching Strikes a few times back to back is a great way to keep your health up while also getting your resources up as well. Also, we've got Healthy Offering, which I wasn't sure whether to use Healthy Offering on this or use the Scribing skill yet, but I just wanted to keep this on here first just to see how it goes. So this is going to be your burst heal whenever you're getting really, really, really low and your heals aren't cutting it with Resolving and Refreshing. Hit this, boom, right up to full health. I'm hitting really high heals on this, and it's really worth it. Also, on top of that, you're going to get Minor Mending for 10 seconds, increasing your healing down by 8%. And then we have Early Susceptibility. This is going to be your source of Major Breach. This is going to reduce your enemy's physical and spell resistance by 6k. Also, every 7.5 seconds, the enemies are going to be affected with the Burning, Chilled, and Concussion status effects. So that's going to put a lot of extra damage on them. And this is going to be your proc condition for Vadishron Ice Staff on your back bar. So make sure that you have this active on your enemies at all times as well. And then finally, we have Temporal Guard on our back bar. The main reason why you have this is for your minor protection, so it's going to reduce your damage taken by 5%, so it's definitely necessary for that. And that is the entire build. I've been really enjoying this. I know it's not like top of the line meta, but honestly, I don't care. I've been having a lot of fun with this, and that's really all I care about nowadays. Sometimes they're going to be meta builds, sometimes they're going to be fun builds, and really that's what makes my channel what it is we have a nice mixture of both for all kinds of players. So I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you're still watching to this point in the video, hit that like button for me. That really helps me a lot. Also, if you're still at this point of the video, comment what your favorite color is. Mine is lavender, which is why we always have these light pastel colors for our characters. I always like these pastels. So lavender personally is my favorite colors. Tell me about yours. I would love to hear about it. So guys, let's get on with the footage for the build. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one. Later.